Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to Wake Up with RT Sports, our second edition of this. I'm joined by my son, Henry, once again. Henry, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem.
We are going to go over all of the early inactives, talk about some of the injuries in the later games as well, some of our favorite plays for the day, answer any questions you have as well. So please don't hesitate to do that at all. If you have any questions, leave it here in the stream and we will answer it. I'll be checking my Twitter feed as well. So if you want to leave it there, you can do that also. But again, feel free to have any questions you want. Post them on here. We'll answer for you if you have any start sits, trade questions, whatever. You name it. We're more than happy to answer them for you. So let's get into these inactives for the early games, Henry. First of all, I'm going to bring it up on the stream. We're going to go through each game, talk about the key ones, guys who are playing, guys who aren't playing. So let's get into that right now. First of all, let's go with that Jets-Cleveland game. Nothing really of note in that one, Henry. Dearness Johnson's healthy scratch again. Same thing with Denzel Mims. C.J. Uzomah's out also, but nothing really crazy in that game, right?
Yeah, nothing really big. Denzel Mims, healthy scratch once again because he's demanding a trade, but nothing really that big in that game.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Washington, Detroit. This one does have some impactful inactives and actives, and the main one's DeAndre Swift. He's active. He has an ankle injury, popped up late in the week, scared a lot of fantasy owners, but he is going to play this week. They're talking about him being a little limited in the game, though, so that's a little concerning. Might not get his full workload, could split more work with Jamal Williams. What are you doing with him personally?
I mean, personally, it is a little scary with that ankle injury, and he might be limited, but I feel like you still have to start him because it is DeAndre Swift. You don't want to bench your first, second-round pick, really.
I agree. I would still play him. I still consider him a high number two fantasy back this week. Even if he's limited, he's going to get work in the passing game. Could be more used that way than more of an inside runner. Jamal Williams, though, you got to boost him up a little bit, right?
Yeah, boost him up a little bit, especially last week with the 2 goal line carries that he got, which you might see a lot more of that this week and a lot more just in the run game in general. So he could have a bigger role this week.
All right, let's move on to the next set of games. This is a big one. A lot of inactives and actives in this one to talk about. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. So Chris Godwin's out. Julio Jones is out. In New Orleans, Alvin Kamara is out. Traquan Smith. So a lot of big names to note. And then the guys that are in, Mike Evans, he is going to play. Russell Gage is going to play. Leonard Fournette's going to play. So let's talk about this receiver room in Tampa Bay right now. So it's basically Mike Evans, Russell Gage are going to be the top main options in that one with Julio Jones out. I think Russell Gage could be a sneaky play for fantasy teams this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. He could have a decently big week this week, especially if Julio and Godwin out, because we saw last week what happened. Julio was targeted a lot in that deep, like passing. He got targeted on a streak at the before the first half ended. I mean, he could see a lot of work, especially Evans too. I know he's really good last week, but he could see even more volume this week. And same with Fournette too. I just think he sees a lot more in the passing game this week. He's going to see a lot of carries because they might try to slow the pace a little bit with a lot of injuries on that team.
I like that call, Fournette. I do think he could get more work in the passing game as well. So that's an intriguing play in my opinion. Even if he's banged up a little bit, he has a good tendency to play through injury and do well. So with New Orleans, Alvin Kamara's out. Mark Ingram is going to play, but he's been hurt this week too. He's been questionable, missing practice time, hasn't done a lot. I'm still worried about Ingram personally. I don't feel totally confident playing him. I still think if you are looking for options, you have Kamara, don't have much behind him. I still think you can go with Ingram, but I worry about him having a huge game. He has a track record. He's done it in the past, but still, I don't like the situation with him being banged up. And Tony Jones Jr. is there as well. He could get some work too. What are you thinking about Ingram?
I mean, I would worry about him a little bit, but if you're a player that maybe you have Dobbins and Kamara, so you're in a little bit of a hole this week because they're both out. So maybe you're looking for another play and you have him. But one player I do like a lot this week in New Orleans is Michael Thomas. I hate to say it, 'cause I'm not a big fan of the guy, but we saw what he did last week. He had those 2 touchdowns late in the game, but I think he sees a lot more work this week, especially with Kamara out. And you're gonna lose. There's gonna be targets spread around a little bit more because he gets targeted a lot in the passing game out of the backfield.
What about Taysom Hill? That's a guy that's kind of been brought up with some fantasy owners to me. Kind of intrigued by using him this week. I am a little bit as well because he could get some chances to run the ball, and he qualifies a tight end on our site and a lot of other sites as well. So maybe a sneaky play if you want to take a chance this week on Hill. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I still worry about him because there's a chance. What if they just don't run the ball with him? He's
Yeah.
not going to catch the ball. Much usually all they do with him is run. So it could be a little worrisome. But I feel like a lot of games like this where they have some sort of injury, he usually scores a touchdown or does something. So it would be a little bit of a sneaky play to play him this week.
Plus, Jameis Winston's got a sore back, so maybe they could work Hill in as a QB a little more as well. Who knows?
Mhm.
But again, want to take a chance, maybe do that with Hill. Let's move on to the next game. Carolina and the New York Giants. Nothing really of note here. Wan'Dale Robinson is out, the rookie. He had a great preseason. And Kadarius Toney's going to play. He's active. He was iffy to play this week. I worry about him, though. I know Robinson is inactive, so that's a positive for Toney. He played just 12% of the snaps last week, so I still have a hard time just throwing him in my lineup. He seems to be in the doghouse a little bit in New York for whatever reason. So I don't know if I'm just throwing Toney in my lineup. I still think he's super talented, could be a factor this year, but I don't know if I trust playing him this week. What about you?
I mean, I don't trust them either. But my question for you, New York, is I know you paid Kenny Galladay a lot of money, but you're really playing that guy over Tony. I mean, you see what Kenny Galladay does. He doesn't use any effort or anything. It looks like when he's out there, doesn't try to block or anything.
Yeah, and I was surprised. He played a team high 77% of the snaps last week for the Giants, so he was out there a ton and not making many plays. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering how long that's going to last.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next game on the slate, New England at Pittsburgh. This one really isn't anything uh, of note to talk about. And this one, I guess the one player was Pierre Strong is going to make his debut for New England, the rookie running back. So maybe he'll be in the mix a little bit, causing more confusion with everybody and the New England backs. So that's one thing to keep an eye on, wondering how they're going to use Strong. Move on to the next game, Henry, since that one wasn't very exciting. Indianapolis and Jacksonville. Now, this one does have a few players we need to talk
Mhm.
about. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, the two starting receivers in Indianapolis, they're out of the lineup. They're out, not going to play this week. Both of them hurt. Pittman got hurt late in the week in practice. Huge loss for fantasy teams, especially for me. I have
Mhm.
tons of shares of Pittman. I love that guy this year. I think he's going to have a huge year, and it's really a shame to see him get hurt already. Hopefully, this isn't a long-term problem for him. Those are two starting receivers out. You got to worry about
Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan because of this, and then Paris Campbell's probably going to start. Maybe Ashton Doolin, Mike Strachan. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but he played some last
Yeah.
week. So those are the three guys that are probably the top options in the passing game. Not too exciting at Indy. One guy I do like because of these injuries, Naheem Hines.
Yeah.
I think he could really get a lot of targets this week. But overall, I think you got to downgrade a lot of the passing options in Indianapolis because of this situation with all the receivers being hurt. Mo Alley Cox, too, is another guy I might be thinking about playing this week in Indianapolis. What do you think
Yeah,
about
I
that?
agree with the Naheem Hines take. I think he sees a lot of work in the passing game today. And I think could be a little bit of a sneaky play would be Paris Campbell. So I feel like, I mean, he's the number one guy now, and I mean, he could see a good amount of work as we saw Pittman last week. I know he's Pittman; he's really good, but Ryan targeted that number one guy a lot last week, and he got a lot of work. So I could see him get Campbell getting a pretty good week this week.
Very true. Jacksonville, nothing really of note. The only thing that came out was there was a lot of reports from several different NFL insiders that they were going to split the work at running back this
Hmm.
week with James Robinson and Etienne. So more of a 50-50 split. That's something to keep an eye
Hmm.
on. I still think Robinson probably gets the goal line carries, so that's a positive for him. But tough matchup against the
Hmm.
Colts this week for both those guys. I think they're both, still decent fantasy plays, but I'm not sure they're going to have huge games comparatively speaking to the previous week. All right, Miami, Baltimore, Henry. That's a last early game. This is another one with not a ton to talk about. I guess J.K. Dobbins is
Hmm.
the one player. He's been pushing to play as he recovers from a torn ACL, but he's out another week. He seems to be very close. Leaves Kenyon Drake as the likely starter. He played 59% of the snaps last week. I think if you're going to use it back in Baltimore, that's the guy I want in my lineup. In Miami, Miles Gaskin, healthy scratch once again. So Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert get most of the work there in the running game. Not really anything too much of note in that matchup. Anything you want to add?
I mean, Dobbins, with him, I feel like they're just being extra cautious with him just for the fact that he tore like his ACL, his LCL. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, PCL,
And then also his
hamstring.
hamstring. And there's one other thing too. He tore a lot of things with that injury, and that's really difficult to recover from. So I'd be worried about him going forward in general.
Let's talk a little bit about these late games too, because there's some players of note. Obviously, the inactives aren't up yet with them. I'm going to leave the other page up so people can see it. You can see that on the site as well. It's in the middle of all your home pages. George Kittle, he is not expected to play, but he is pushing to play, is what the story is. So I wouldn't totally rule him out yet, despite some of the reports out there. It's tough to do when you got a late game, might have not have other options to go with, but he still wants to try to play this week, but it's not looking great, but he hasn't been totally ruled out yet. Allen Lazard, he's going to make his debut tonight. That's what all reports are in Green Bay. He should get a heavy workload after last week. That's the one guy that you can trust in that Green Bay passing game, in my opinion. Aaron Rodgers should look at him a lot. And then Gabe Davis, another player that got hurt late in the week, ankle injury. He's iffy for that Monday night game. So that's going to be a tough one. The only good news there is that there is 4 options on Monday night. You got Tennessee, Buffalo, Minnesota, Philadelphia. So might have a few more options on the bench if you want to hold out hope that Davis might play. So that's something to think about. And even if Davis is out, I kind of like Isaiah McKenzie.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could get a lot of work. So if you have him as a bench option or you can pick him up, I would do that if you want to hold out hope for Gabe Davis to play. The other things we want to talk about, the weather. Another thing we want to talk about, I should say.
Yeah.
Because we saw last week, we mentioned it. It was 49ers Bears. We said it was torrential rain. You better be concerned about any players in that offense. And it kind of came to fruition. Did not go well in that matchup for those players. So there's another game that could be like that this week. And it's the 49ers, unfortunately.
Yeah, poor Trey Lance can't catch a break with the weather. And I'd be really worried about this one. They said it was decently heavy rain and like 15-mile-per-hour winds. Poor Trey Lance can't get a good weather game.
No, can't catch a break right now. And it's kind of a big situation for the 49ers, too. They need to win that game, I think.
Yeah.
It's a home game against a team, Seattle. I don't think they're very good, despite last week. Kind of worrisome for Trey Lance owners. If he doesn't play well, you wonder what they're going to do there. But again, rain in the forecast, supposed to be steady rain. I kind of like Jeff Wilson because of that. I think he's going to get first shot. Shanahan trusts him. I think he's going to get a big workload. So I like him as a play this week. Colts Jaguars is another one where there's a chance of some stray showers. Nothing too serious, though, so I'm not too worried about those players. Those are really the only weather situations. So let's recap these inactives and actives for the early games real quick, Henry. DeAndre Swift, he's active. He's going to play. Could see limited snaps. Julio Jones, he's out. Chris Godwin's out. That's in Tampa. Mike Evans is going to play. He could get a lot of work in that passing game. Russell Gage as well. He's been hurting also, but he's going to play. We both Henry and I think he could be a sneaky fantasy play. Leonard Fournette, he is active. He could get a lot of work as both a runner and receiver because of the injuries at receiver in Tampa Bay. Alvin Kamara, he is out, officially out with a rib injury. Mark Ingram will start, but he could end up splitting more work with Tony Jones because Ingram's not 100% as well. Kadarius Toney, he is active for the Giants, but he played just 12% of the snaps last week, so not really a sure thing just yet. Michael Pittman, he is officially out for the Indianapolis Colts. Alec Pierce is out as well. That leaves Paris Campbell, Ashton Doolin, maybe Mike Strackton as well. I'm not sure if I'm even pronouncing his name right because I've never really come across people talking about him. J.K. Dobbins, he's out in Baltimore. Kenyon Drake should start in his place, played 59% of the snaps last week for Baltimore. And George Kittle, we just talked about these late games. He's pushing to play, not likely going to be allowed to. Allen Lazard, he's expected to play tonight for Green Bay. Gabe Davis, he's iffy for the Monday night game, a little bit of a concern for fantasy owners. Let's see if there's any questions for us, Henry. I don't see anything on Twitter. Nobody's posted anything in here. I guess everybody's set with their lineups for the week. Mm-hmm. We can talk about some players we like as well, Henry, some plays we like, games we're interested in as well. Any game, first of all, that you're looking at this week that you're kind of interested to watch?
Yeah, I'm going to go Baltimore and Miami. I think that's going to be a very good game. I'm excited to see what Tua looks like against a very good Baltimore defense and team and see if he can prove that he's the guy in Miami and he can do it. And I personally think they will. I personally think I have Miami in that game taking out Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. I'm kind of interested in seeing how New Orleans does at home against Tampa Bay. A good Tampa Bay defense. They looked really good last week, but I still have hope for New Orleans and Jameis Winston. And I want to see if Mike Thomas is back and
Mhm.
officially going to play at a high level in that offense going forward and being that number one guy. There are some stinker games here too, in my opinion. I think Jacksonville. I'm worried about Trevor Lawrence a little
Mhm.
bit. I still don't think he looks great. What?
I mean, I do think he's going to improve as time goes on. I do also think, I know they did get some things. He needs a little bit more on that offense. I think he needs a way better offensive line. Those tackles did not look the best last week. Again, that's a pretty good Washington D line, but those tackles did not sustain him a ton of time in the pocket. So he could use a little bit of that, and maybe another wide receiver. Kirk looked pretty good last week. Zay Jones, I think he dropped a couple passes, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. I
he
think
got a
they
lot
need to
of
get another
targets
guy.
though.
Yeah.
I actually have Zay Jones as a sleeper this week. I think he could get a lot of work once again. Evan Ingram too is a guy I'm interested in this week against the Colts. They struggled to stop the Texans tight ends last week, which was a little bit of surprise because the Texans don't have very good tight ends. So I think Ingram could be a sleeper play, not a sleepy play in that matchup against them. I'm also looking for Allen Robinson to rebound in a big
Hmm.
way last week. I don't think you can give up on players after a week of action. I mean, it happens every year. Guys aren't going to play at a huge high level like a Cooper Cup level all season. So don't get too down on a player after 1 week of action. I'm looking for Allen Robinson to rebound in a big way this week. He was still on the field for 97% of the snaps last week. So he was out there, gets a good matchup against the Falcons this week. They allowed the third most fantasy points to receivers. So I like Robinson a lot to rebound this week. Anybody?
Yeah, I actually have another Ram from that team. I like Daryl Henderson a lot this week.
Yeah.
With Cam Akers, we saw that Sean McVay went into play with a little more intensity, is what they said. I think Henderson could have a big week against a not the best Atlanta defense in the world, with him getting a lot of work in the receiving game and running game. Another game, though, that I'm interested in watching is the Giants and Panthers. I want to see how that goes with see if the Giants are maybe the deal because they ended up beating the Titans last week. See if Barkley keeps on going with.
He's got a Giants jersey on, everybody out
Uh,
there.
I want to see if Barkley keeps going how he was last week. See if he can keep with that pace. And I also want to see what the Panthers do. We saw Baker Mayfield last week. He was not the best in the world against the Browns. But now is an easier matchup, in my opinion, against the Giants defense. It's just okay, in my opinion. So, and also see if they give the ball to McCaffrey more, which that was the problem last week, in my opinion, too. He's one of the best running backs in football. I feel like you had to give him more of the touches.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand his usage at all in that matchup. Another player I didn't understand their usage was Josh Jacobs. I've talked about him before a little bit in past broadcasts too, but Brandon Bolden was out there a lot. He's just not very good. I hate to say it. I know he caught a touchdown pass, but he's a special teams player. And the only reason he came off the field was because he got hurt last week. And then Josh Jacobs came in. He averaged like 5.9 yards per carry,
Yeah.
and he had barely over double digit touches, like 12 touches or something. I think you just got to get that guy involved, and I'm hoping the Raiders do that. And Josh McDaniels doesn't keep playing, favorites and going with
Mhm.
guys that he trusts more than a more explosive player like Jacobs. So I'm kind of interested to see what he does this week as
I
well.
also want to talk about the other side of the ball in that game, and I want to talk about Arizona. I want to see what they do. After last week, I thought it was poor performance by that team and offense in general,
Yeah,
especially Kyler Murray. I want to see him target the ball more to Marquise Brown, Zach Ertz. We need to see those guys get involved. I don't know what's the deal with Rondell Moore. What's going on with him? Is he out still?
I believe Moore was. I think he is playing this week. I believe is the. Let me look that up to make sure. But I believe Rondell Moore is in action this week. He should be. Oh no, he is out this week. He was
Hmm.
ruled out already because of his hamstring injury. Yeah, he's been battling that for a little bit. Greg Dortch was a little bit of a surprise. He actually had 9 targets in that
Hmm.
game, so he might be a factor as well this week. But yeah, Rondell Moore's out once again because of his hamstring injury. I thought he was pushing to play this week, but he got ruled out late in the week,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And that's a big loss. I mean, that's some receivers you're without.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins, Rondell Moore.
Now, speaking more of that offense, Marquise Brown I actually do like a lot this week, especially with the Raiders' pass game not being the best in the world. They do not have many good corners in that room. Marquise Brown looking to rebound from just a decent week last week. I know he caught a
He was
touchdown,
fine. Yeah.
but I mean, besides that, he had like 3 or 4 catches. So I could see having a big rebound game here against not the best Las Vegas secondary.
Yeah, what about Aaron Rodgers? He owns the
Mhm.
Bears, like he likes to say. You think he's going to own them tonight?
I think they will, but it is a little worrisome if they do end up losing that game for that team in general. I mean, I know the Bears won last week, but that was in a torrential downpour and terrible conditions
Yeah,
against Trey Lance's first start of the season.
yeah, interesting. I like the Monday night when they have two games, though. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So they got Tennessee, Buffalo, and then Minnesota, Philadelphia. I don't know if that Tennessee Buffalo game is going to be very good. But I love the Minnesota Philadelphia matchup.
Mhm.
I think that's going to be high scoring. I would love to have as many fantasy players
Mhm.
as possible in my lineups for that one. Let's go over these inactives again real quick in case somebody's joining late. Let's just do it real quick. We'll do it rapid fire. I pulled it up for everybody here so they can
Mhm.
see it. But Jets, Cleveland, nothing really of note in that matchup. Denzel Mims, he is a healthy scratch. Dearness Johnson as well. Washington, Detroit, this was a big one because DeAndre Swift was on the fence. He's going to play on his ankle injury, might be limited though. So that's a little bit of a concern. Both Henry and I said we would still play him though, even though he could be limited. We still think he'll get enough touches to help fantasy teams. And he's so explosive, hard to sit him. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, that's a big one.
Mhm.
Chris Godwin, he is out. Julio Jones is out. Uh, Alvin Kamara is out. So those are three big time starters out of the lineup. Mike Evans is going to play though, and Russell Gage is as well. So both those guys get a lot of targets for Tampa. Leonard Fournette as well. He is active. He was questionable. Also, he's another player that could get a lot of work in that game. And then with Alvin Kamara out, Mike Ingram likely starts and should get uh, the first knock at it. Being the number one back, but he's banged up too. So I'm a little worried about him. I think you can still play him if you're really kind of searching for options. Maybe you have an injury problem going on with your team, but I think you can end up splitting more work with Tony Jones because he's hurt as well. Carolina, New York, nothing really crazy in this one. Wandell Robinson is hurt, the rookie, but he wasn't really on fantasy radars just yet. And Kadarius Toney, he is active. He's been banged up, but he's going to be able to play this week. But he played just 12% of the snaps last week. Maybe that goes up a little bit because Robinson's hurt. Still think he's an iffy fantasy play. New England, Pittsburgh, nothing really of note in this matchup except Pierre Strong is going to play for New England. The rookie's going to make his debut, just clouding things even more for fantasy teams with another back in the mix there with Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. Indianapolis, Jacksonville, another game here with some big injuries of note. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, the two starting receivers, they're out of the lineup for Indianapolis. That leaves uh, Paris Campbell, Ashton Doolin, maybe Michael Strackton, and I guess Mo Alley Cox. You got to bump him up in your tight end rankings a little bit, could get more work. Naheem Hines, too. Both Henry and I like him to get a lot of work in the passing game there. Also, another game, Miami and Baltimore. It's the last one. That's a big one with J.K. Dobbins out. Still not ready to go yet. They're being really cautious with him as he returns from a torn ACL. And it looks like Kenyon Drake should be the top back in that offense. Played 59% of the snaps last week, so he played a lot, and he was new to the offense. Mike Davis really not a factor. All right, Henry, those are all of the inactives and actives for the early games. Nobody has any questions, no start sit stuff yet. Uh, Always happy to answer anything. If you have trade questions, whatever, you name it, we're here for you. I'm going to remove these inactives now, Henry, and talk about the late games again real quick. George Kittle, he's hurt still. He wants to play, though, but
Mhm.
I'm still not expecting it to happen. There's been a lot of reports to the contrary that he's not going to be allowed to play. Alan Lazard, he's going to make his debut tonight. He got didn't he get stepped on? Wasn't that what the injury was a
Yeah, I
couple
believe
weeks
it
ago?
was.
So he's going to make his debut tonight. Should get a big workload for that Green Bay offense, especially since Aaron Rodgers trusts him. And then Gabe Davis, Monday night game. He has an ankle injury, got hurt late in the week. This is a concern. The only good news is, as Henry and I talked about, uh, there are more late games to choose from
Yeah.
Monday night with Tennessee, Minnesota, Buffalo, and Philadelphia. So maybe you have some receivers on that team, on those teams that you could use as insurance in case Davis is not allowed to play. And let's go over the weather situations again real quick. Unfortunately, in San Francisco, dealing with rain again, and it's supposed to be a steady rain throughout the game and high winds as well. not good for those passing games. Seattle and the 49ers still a little bit of a concern with all those options. I guess one guy, DK Metcalf, I would still probably play because he didn't get a lot of chances down the field last week.
And he got a lot of targets in
general. A lot of
general.
targets, a lot of catches, but they were short passes, screen plays, stuff, quick hitters, as Geno Smith didn't, take a ton of chances down the field. So maybe he still gets that workload this week and might be able to break a big play. So I still feel pretty good playing him. Not so much Tyler Lockett, though.
No, I worry about him a lot. He didn't get a ton of targets last week. DK Metcalf seemed to take over in the receiving game. Also, some of those tight ends got some touchdowns too.
Will Disley, he actually outplayed Noah Fant. He was on the field for more work. A little surprising there. Made some big plays in the passing game as well. And then one other game has a chance for showers. Colts, Jags in Jacksonville. But it's nothing too serious. In Florida, rain can hit just like that and then move out. So I would not be too concerned about that one just yet. So that is our wake up with RT Sports for week 2. I hope all of you have a lot of success this week. Should be a lot of fun once again. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We really enjoy doing this, helping you get ready, setting your lineups. Games are starting in about a half hour now. Should be a lot of fun today. Henry, I really appreciate you joining me. Appreciate you joining me once again. He was supposed to have a baseball game, got rained out, so he got to help me out again today. I really appreciate him coming on the stream. It's raining here in St. Louis. No football here, though, unfortunately, but did get some rain this morning. So, again, appreciate you joining this morning on Wake Up with RT Sports. Good luck in all of your games in week 2. And thanks a lot for using RealTime Fantasy Sports. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel as well. We really appreciate that. And we appreciate you tuning in. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.
And Henry Power.
Have a great day, everyone. Good luck, week 2.